Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's fitting well. Nice to see so many people, actually. This event's all about project controls, project professionals, so I wasn't really too sure how many people would be interested in listening to a bit of a tech head. So thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Before we get started, just a few introductions, standard things as normal. My name's Dave Hurren. I'm the Technical Services Director for RPCuk. We're an Oracle partner, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. I'm a certified implementation specialist for a couple of Oracle products, and as he says on there, a little bit of a geek at times. My colleagues, that's what they think I am, and also they do believe I have a resemblance to a famous wizard. Yeah, I've got my own cup that says that as well, but it's a joke. Talking about RPC then, RPC, I don't know if anybody knows, we're the sponsor here today, but we're actually a platinum partner within Oracle. We've been around for about 25 years or so now. We are a platinum Oracle partner as well, and we specialize within Oracle Cloud Primavera applications and Oracle Primavera applications. We also focus on other Oracle applications that surround the Primavera product set, things like OBIE, business intelligence, enterprise reporting, database, middleware. So we get involved with a lot of technical integration works as well. We also have another element to the company, which is around training and education, not just on technical software education, things like database, middleware, etc. Also, we provide business software education, things like how to use the Primavera product set, things like that. And also business practices, your general APM type of training as well. We also work with that. We are also a specialized partner for the Oracle Cloud Primavera SaaS application as well, and we've deployed that on Oracle SaaS, and we also provide other hosted services as well. So what we're really going to talk about is integration. It's something that's key and close to my own personal heart, and we're going to talk about how integrated services and integrated systems within project controls is actually a really good thing. So we're going to look at why, before we navigate into the actual presentation, we're going to try and navigate through this really complicated topic, because integration is not simple. Anyone who's ever done an integration within a project controls environment? Anyone? Yeah, some shakes. It's not easy, is it? It's not like some IT directors say things like, that's just a planning tool. How hard can that be? Yeah? I hate that. That's like a pet hate of mine. And I'll go into why, personally, I hate that type of comment, but we'll talk about that later. But we're going to ask some questions. We're going to raise some points, and hopefully through those asking those questions and answering them as we go, then hopefully you guys will get a bit more information around what we're talking about. We're also going to take a look at why we need integrated data, and also the typical requirements that we come across as a business doing this type of work all the time, that you guys hopefully will have familiarity with. You've maybe done it before, or in the process of doing it, or looking at doing it. And we'll see what tools are available on the market for the ever-changing environment around cloud computing. Because cloud computing's not new anymore. It's like the big thing, but it's not really new and been out for a while. But it has changed things when it looks at integration, especially with project control systems. And then before wrapping up, we're going to take a look at some integration works that we've done to give you guys an idea of what actually is achievable. And if you've got any questions about that, then just obviously throw them at me, and then eventually we'll summarize all the key points. So, first things first, first question, why do we need integrated systems in the world of project controls? So, it may sound like a really strange question to ask, because some people may work in large organizations with huge volumes of projects across many different environments, and therefore think, well, that's pretty obvious, because my data comes from here, there, and everywhere. But however, some people, we find quite commonly, some people actually don't understand why you need it. And really, it's all about complexity. So for example, if you've got a really complex organization with lots of data all over the place, and all your projects are all over the place, then to be fair, you need to pull that information together. But what if you don't have that? Then why would you want to invest in integration? What's the point? It's a big investment. So it's amazing, it's all around, and we find it comes down to the size and complexity of your programs, comes down to how many projects you have to deliver within your environment, within your community, The complexity also of the organisation. You may have lots of projects to deliver, but a very simply singular linear type of structure to your organisation. Now, most organisations are all like a spider's web, but again, it depends. And then from those things, you can identify whether integration is actually cost effective or not. So what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying that everybody has to integrate. What I'm saying is the right company should integrate. And that's really where we're going at. You may have something I'm going to talk about this afternoon is an Oracle product called Oracle Primavera Unifier. You may have an application like Unifier that actually is your consolidation platform, and therefore you may not need an integrated control system because you've already got one in another form. But really, cutting to the chase, the benefit of a true integrated system really is around providing confidence and improving communication and also collaboration, confidence in things like the data that we see, the clarity of that information. Is it right? Sometimes it's not. Understanding the current state of your project with all of that information in it, what's happening now. 9 times out of 10, the questions always come back, how much is that costing me? How much am I getting back? What is my performance? What is my operating performance? What is my business performance? And it's surprising, I personally feel it's surprising how often we walk into opportunities and customer projects, etc. And everybody's doing that integration work, but they're doing it in a spreadsheet. Or like spreadsheets normally, like hundreds of them. And again, I'll talk a bit about that later. And everybody's pulling all this data together and all they're doing is spending time consolidating the data and they're actually not using it, which is unfortunate. Let me give you an example. So we did this work for a company that worked in the infrastructure sector, and they had an ERP system, so like SAP or Oracle E-Business, that type of tool. They were doing all their accounting and everything like that in there, which was great. And then they used P6 for all their planning and schedules and resource management, all that stuff, which sounds really cool. It's about where you want to be. And then all of a sudden, they said, oh, well, what we do now is to get our project accounts, we take the data out of the ERP system, put it in a spreadsheet, then Joe goes away and changes that. Then what he does, he puts that into the Access database, and then basically from the output of that is where we do our project accounting. Sound familiar? Anyone? Some shakes, nods, laughs. It's amazing, isn't it? This day and age. And that's what they did. Another one is a manufacturing company. They have huge volumes of people around the world, all working away, building their products. And they have massive diverse teams, including people that are so specialized that there is a very select few in the entire organization. And they were planning all their projects in P6, and some of them using Microsoft Project, which is okay, that's all right. As an Oracle guy, that's not all right, obviously, but that's okay. But then what they did was they said, oh, we'll take all that data, all that really cool data, and we'll just stick it all in a spreadsheet. And then we'll figure out that because you're like the really key resource, where you're going to work all over the world from a spreadsheet. Okay, great. That's not that good because it's got macros in it. There's loads of queries. There's loads of margins for error. And that's, again, one of the key things. So, before we really get into the tech side, I'm going to talk, maybe some point, I'm going to sort of teach you to suck eggs in some respect. And apologies for this, because you guys will know this anyway. We're going to look at the different types of data that's in project controls. And what I'm trying to do is put some clarity around different types of information, where it comes from, or the vast areas that we pull data from. So, in project controls, trying to put it really simply in the time we've got, which is going down. We've got projects, scope, deliverables, activities, things like time and duration and effort and people and teams and resource groups and things like risks and how their cause and effect and how we're going to manage that, analyze that. And then we've got things like performance and communication of expectations and when we're breaching expectations and setting new expectations. We've also got, and that's really just some of the little things that are involved at a really high level. But again, there's so much more to the volumes and types of data that's inside a project. And then if we look at the types of projects, so inside each of them projects, we've got that data, but in the types of projects we have some projects that around the merging of projects together. So we have capital projects, we have design and engineering work projects, we've got improvement projects, investment projects, IT upgrade projects, maintenance projects, etc., etc., etc. We've got organizational projects. Projects are about mergers and acquisitions. We've got projects about compliance and quality and the like. All these projects, and they're all doing something completely different. They're all delivering something completely different and contain similar types of high-level data, but when you get down into them, they're all very different, but they're all under your control. You guys are the ones that have to manage it and make it work, yeah? But everything's very different. Now, if we look at where some of this data comes from and how that's impacted, we can see that each project gets different data from different places. So we've got different operational units and organizational units like business units and departments and project units all contributing to your project. You've got each individual project's got different managers, different subject matter experts, consultants, people like myself, supervisors, team leaders, and all of these people are providing data and all these people are providing structures and all these things need to be in your project or are in your project. And all this is in a single project and everything contributes to your project like scope, work, breakdowns, financial breakdowns. It's amazing how many times you go to a company and they say, well, this is how we break our finances down for the corporate level, and then but for your project, we're going to do it like that instead. But you have to make sure it matches back to that. Oh, okay. But you have to manage that. In summary, what I'm trying to get across here is that projects contain loads of data from loads of different places, and sometimes it may sound like it's the same piece of data, but it's definitely not. Hence why, if you don't have an integrated platform, is what people use spreadsheets, because it's the only way they can figure out how to do it. So let's take a more of a deeper dive into the data and looking at just budgeting, just one thing, just budgeting. Really simple, just budgeting. And if we take a look and see, right, okay, well, we've got internal costs and there's an overhead and that's coming from our legal entity because maybe we're working underneath one organization. And then what we've got is the operational costs on top of that, which actually are coming from the operation or even the business unit. And that could include things like intercompany, inter or departmental cross-charging, intercompany billing, that type of thing. Maybe you've even got an uplift. So maybe you've got your original legal entity cost, but now you've put an uplift on top because it's coming from a different department. But then the project may have its own markup on its own. So maybe the project itself has got the same concept. Maybe you're marking up because of your own project, or maybe you've started even got supplier costs. So for example, maybe your supplier costs are coming in, and maybe they've got a different markup for different projects. So project A gets charged X for this product, but project B gets charged Y for the same thing. Maybe that's internally, maybe that's externally, maybe that's bad supplier management. But then if we look at the project itself, and then we're getting information not only from these different suppliers, but maybe we're buying that information from inside our company. Maybe those ancillary products, the items, very specific equipment, is actually being bought by your project from within your company. It's, again, it sounds like the same thing, but it's very, very different. It's coming from a completely different place. So if we continue with the example and we get some of this and a little bit of that and we throw some more of the same types of monetary values in, and it's coming from one part of the company or it's coming from a different part of the company, and eventually you guys magically create a budget. It's a little bit like magic, but you managed to do that. It's pretty cool. But the key is that the data is coming from somewhere different every time, and say some of it's good, some of it's really good data, some of it's bad. Some of it's from that app, you know, the one that Jim created way back when, and it turned out to be an Access database. No one knows how to use it. And at the end of every month, the finance team, they just sit there praying that it doesn't break, because if it does, then what are you going to do about it? You got no one to fix it. Or it's one of those spreadsheets, you know, the ones where there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies of them. Nobody knows which is the right one they should be using. And Dave decided that I don't like the color of that one, I'm going to change it. So now that's the one we need to use, yeah? There's people over here laughing, but you're laughing because it's real, yeah? This happens. And then you've done really well so far, because through all of that really lot of hard work you guys have done, your teams have done, they've actually managed to consolidate all of that. Amazingly done that. And then what happens, unfortunately, is that change comes along, like a disruptive force, and absolutely throws everything you've done, just, there you go, there's the bin, just put it in the bin there. Start again, please. Because this change has happened and we have to do it all over again. With an integrated system, it's not going to solve all of your problems because nothing ever will, because change occurs and no one can understand exactly what changes are going to occur on every project because no one's seen every possible change that can occur. But what an integrated system does is it helps you reduce the amount of effort in gathering that data together, in validating that information you've received, because you're getting it from the source. So if it's wrong in the source application, in the source system, then it's wrong everywhere. But you fix it once, and everywhere's fixed. You don't fix it here, there, and there, there, and there. Other things it does is it helps align the expectations of the teams because they understand and confident in what they're seeing. That confidence that it wasn't this team that manipulated that. Is that the right spreadsheet? Is that the right access database? Not too sure. It brings everything together and just gives a bit more confidence. And therefore, from that confidence, you get quality. The quality improves. And again, it all comes back to you guys not spending time making sure your data's right, actually spending time making sure that your project's going in the right direction and you're using that data. Now, loads of people say that, absolutely, loads of people say it. And they're true, it's just a shame that people are where they are. But the key points to take away thus far is the project data you guys are working with comes from all over the place. Even though it sounds the same, sometimes it's not. An integrated system will make things simpler and also make sure that your teams can use their time in a more productive way and therefore give the projects team, the project controls team, a better result and more performance and actually move things in the right direction rather than stagnating, trying to figure out whether the data is right. So, next question's around the requirements, typical requirements. What are the normal types of requirement that we see, and you guys will see as well, when we're talking about integrated project control systems? From a tech perspective, techies perspective, I always see these as basically three simple categories. You've got, and it sounds really strange, you've got a simple type of integration, an intermediate and a complex integration. I'm going to explain what the three different types, what I mean by that. And normally deployments will fit in one of those three, or maybe go across those three, depending on what we're talking about, depending on what needs to be done. And we normally find actually in a frequency, it's either something between moderate and simple. And I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. We see less and less often really, really complex integrations. And then normally integrations you see for large corporate rollouts, big global deployments. But also, that doesn't mean that they're exclusive to that. Data migration normally falls into a complex type of integration. So some people think, well, I've got this system, and all I need to do is go from my old one to my new one. That's dead easy, isn't it? It's just there to there. Actually, 9 times out of 10, that's actually the hardest part. Because this thing works like this, and this thing works completely different. And that field there isn't that field there, it's actually that field there is this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. Okay, so again, migrations can be really complicated. Other things around migrations is if we're moving from, say, I don't know, maybe it's a really old ERP tool to a brand new one, well, 9 times out of 10, if it's an off-the-shelf application you move into from maybe a custom build application, there's missing functionality in there. You maybe he's only getting 80–85% of what you actually need from your custom app. So now you're dependent upon your integration to actually build out that remaining 20–15%. So actually trying to make the integration provide missing capability in that tool. So again, migrations are where things change things. If we take a look at a simple type of integration, I call these things like pre-processed data. What that means, it already exists, it's somewhere. It doesn't need modifying, it's just basically lift it and shift it from somewhere to somewhere else. It may be a piece of data that's calculated by the source application. Like say, for example, we were integrating P6 to my ERP system. I need to send some dates back. Then really that's simple. P6 calculates your dates. That's what it does out of the box. That's what its tool does. And we're just taking that date field and moving it over here. That's a really simple type of integration. Things that don't require any transformation. We don't need to take that, do something with it, and then send it over here. We're just going to take it and move it. An example of this, to put some context behind that, is we did an integration for, again, a company that worked on the infrastructure, roadways and things like that. They basically needed to move data from inside P6, from the work breakdown structure level, to the project level, still inside P6, from P6 to P6. And that was all about performance and using the P6 dashboards. So they brought detailed work breakdown structure date values up into the project to then create indicators of. There's one example. We didn't need to transform it, we just needed to move it from one place to another, yeah? Another one was for a defense organization where they wanted to implement a thing called a master schedule. Don't know if that makes any sense, an integrated master schedule. You may be familiar with that. For ones that's not, it's basically taking a whole bunch of detailed projects and summarizing them and taking them and putting them into another project plan. It gives you like an air gap between what you may report and what you may be doing, type of thing. Again, that's quite a simple integration because P6 is doing all the hard work and all I'm doing is sending it to somewhere else inside P6 again. So in summary, simple integrations are ones that are really don't require any transformation at all or very limited transformation, and the logic's very, very simple. Moderate integrations are a little heavier on the old transformation and logic that's needed. We need some decisions in there, but also it can be the same limited transformation, but actually the data comes from more than one place. So we've got multiple sources feeding into another application. To give you an example, we're working on, and currently and have been working on for a while, is an employee synchronization between the HR system and their planning application, which is P6, creating people out of the HR system in P6 so they can use and plan for them, yeah? Now, that makes it more difficult. That's quite easy, to be honest. That's not difficult, but the hard part is that the structure of them individual peoples by things like booking codes, that isn't in the HR system. That's in their accounting system. Okay, so what we're going to do then? So basically, we need to pull in data from two different places, and in this case, we pull in the resource breakdown structure from their ERP tool, we pull the people in from their HR tool, we map them both together, and there we go, there's your structure. And that's one of the things we've just done recently. Things like location, departments, job responsibilities, standard working time, and things like that. We're doing all that sort of thing. But again, we combine that because it gets more complicated because, well, what happens when this person here doesn't exist in a booking code over there? And it's those things that add the complexity. If we look at more complex integrations, again, for a customer we worked for a while back, basically same concept. HR people coming in and we need to calculate their maximum usage. So how much can they work in a working day? What's their maximum usability for analysis perspective? The problem is there isn't any source for that in this case. There was no actual system that had that data. And it turned out that more than one system provided data to calculate what the value needed to be, i.e. there is no source of it. So we get more complex because what we're trying to do is we take two bits of values from two different places and then require the integration engine to figure out what the value is and then send that somewhere else. So that's where we get more complex. That's an example of more complex. Now, you might sort of think, well, that doesn't sound too difficult. It's two values. If I did that, I could do that in Excel. I hear that all the time, by the way. I could do that in Excel. But in actual fact, that's not actually the problem. The problem is that there's no source. The problem is what happens when something goes wrong. What happens when that resource doesn't have that value populated? How do you manage that? How do you accommodate that? You've only got half of the information you needed. Again, this is where the saying I mentioned earlier is you get some IT guy that says, oh, it's just a planning tool. How hard can it be? So moving on then, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Moving on to what's out there, how has things evolved? So we've set the scene in some respects and really laid on that this is not easy, it's not straightforward, you guys know that. But now we need to look at what tools are out there. We've got the old-fashioned way, and again, I'm 40, so some people might be of a similar age. And the old way we used to do it was actually sat there typing code, bish bash bosh, typing code using Java, .NET, C++, PLSQL, etc. And then unfortunately, or fortunately I should say, these cloud things came along and basically absolutely scuppered that. Because you can't build custom code and connect to a backend, to a cloud, when you have no actual access to the back-end infrastructure and integration engines that you need. You have to go via some other alternative method. And so came along something called iPaaS. You might have heard it. Integration Platform as a Service. Things like Oracle Integration Cloud Service. You probably don't know, but the company, Dell that make laptops and computers and servers, they also have one called Boomi. It's really good. I'm using that now at the minute, actually. And the difference is that when cloud came along, we needed to actually have some form of technology that allowed us to integrate our cloud applications to our cloud applications and our on-premise applications to our cloud applications and vice versa. And the old way just wouldn't work because you can't deploy your custom-made application you've built into someone else's cloud. You can't deploy a custom-built product into a SaaS environment. You're just renting that software. So how can you deploy that? You can't. So things changed. But we've got different flavors of iPaaS as well. We've got really full-fledged iPaaS, which is really the top four on the left-hand side, or here, these ones here. And then we've got packaged versions, and one of the ones is really the Oracle Primavera Integration Gateway. That's a really good tool. It's packaged. You can have it on the cloud. You can deploy it on-premise. It will do integrations between your different Primavera applications, even different instances of Primavera, which is really cool. And it also has the ability to plug into other third-party applications. The counterbalance to that is that it's not as functionally rich as some of these other ones on the top, but it's significantly easier to deploy. To put some of that into some context, if we look at this chart here, trying to show is the different types of integration platform and their capability. And if you imagine the grey bars are utopia, everything we want to achieve, from the gateway side or any packaged integration service, you probably get about 60%. Some people may say more than that. From experience, it's about 60%. But the key is that, but here the benefits are around that it's so much simpler to deliver. So the positives are the logic and the data mapping may already be defined. You just basically turn it on, connect it up to your source and target environment, and press a button and away you go. It is that simple. People that aren't developers like myself can actually do these things. You just need to understand the application a bit better, a bit more than just a normal user. Then you've got things like the old way, the code way, and iPaaS. And that's where iPaaS is really, really good because it gives you the same functional breadth as the old-fashioned typing code because it uses the same things that the old code used to use, but a newer version of them. If anyone wants to know, it's called web services and REST services, but by all means, talk to me afterwards about that. We're only really limited with these bottom two by what the software provider gives us through the API, through the functions that we can execute. If we look at it from a completely different angle and take a look at more traditional methods, we can see that from a capability scale, we get loads and loads of capability, but from support-wise, it becomes very difficult because someone's custom built that. That developer leaves, that company's contract expires, who's going to support it? It's actually code that you're writing. It's very, very difficult to support. If we take a look at something like a packaged iPaaS like Oracle Primavera Integration Gateway, it's not as feature rich, not as functionally rich, but is so easy to support. A business user, a business type of administration type of person would actually be able to understand how the data is mapped and therefore actually start investigating how to fix it. But with iPaaS, things like Oracle Integration Cloud Service and Dell Boomi and the like, those are actually as feature-rich, as I mentioned, as the old codeway. But again, in order to create integrations, you draw diagrams on a screen. You want to do a data mapping, you've got two tables and you draw a line from one field to another. If you want to concatenate something, you stick a box in the middle and draw two lines into it, tell it to concatenate and draw a line out the back end of it. It's that simple by comparison to the old-fashioned way, which is writing code, which is not simple. So the really cool thing about these products is that, one, they're cloud-based, which means that you don't have a performance problem, because that's the software vendor's problem. That's not your problem. That's Oracle's problem. That's Dell's problem. You need more performance, you just get more. You only pay for what you actually consume. So if you're not doing all the full integration service, you don't pay for that. You just pay for what you're using. Again, taking a slightly different look of capability and deployment cost, again, we still get that whole high level of capability from something like the old way of using code, but from a deployment cost, for the simplest thing, it can cost tens of thousands of pounds to do something very, very simple, because you're writing code from scratch. But then with a packaged application like Gateway, you're getting less capability, but the deployment cost is significantly less. And within maybe, to give you a real example, maybe 2 days, you can build a little integration that would maybe cost you £10,000 doing it the code way. Okay? Obviously, then you need to test it, etc., but putting that to one side. With iPaaS, it's sort of in the middle. It's the same capability, but cost-wise, it's sort of in the middle somewhere. And the reason why is that these are hosted services, therefore you pay monthly rather than upfront costs a lot of the time. You only pay for what you consume, so the actual functions you're actually connecting to and integrating with, you only pay for those ones in a lot of the cases. That's definitely true for Dell Boomi and also Oracle Integration Cloud Service. Because it's subscription-based, instead of paying a huge lump sum up front, you're actually spreading that cost, but also the cost to deploy is significantly smaller, because you're actually, you as a business person, sat with a developer for these applications and drawing the actual functions on the screen and doing the mapping together, which means that it's not a case of back and forth, which is what happens traditionally. So I'm just more or less on time, I think. So what can we sort of take away from this? What can we take away from that? The data that we need for project controls in any project, I think we can all agree that it's not easy to get at it. It comes from many, many places. It comes from all over the place. It can even come from secure locations, which make things even harder because only certain people have access to it. We can get financial data, rate information, currency information, people, and especially with GDPR coming into play, that makes those things even harder to get at nowadays. So it's not simple. It's not just a planning system. As people move towards the cloud, or you may already be in the cloud, but moving towards the cloud, that totally changes the shape of how you would integrate your applications together. The old way may not even be achievable anymore. Those applications like Java and the like, actually coding Java and PLSQL, they're not cloud ready. They can't go to the cloud. So that makes things more difficult. As we move, the deployment costs as well, obviously, as I mentioned before, they're quite high. But as people move towards the cloud or are in the cloud, they're moving their integrations towards cloud tools like iPaaS. And the real benefits, again, just to go over them, it's very what's classed as low code. If you Google low code, it'll come up with these things. And basically, it means exactly that. It means you don't actually write code. You actually draw it. You drag and drop it on the screen. You're not actually writing code. So that actually reduces the deployment time, but it's still really feature-rich because you're still using the same connectivity technology as what you previously were using. But the real benefit is you can have all of that hosted, which is real benefit. Packaged services like the integration gateway, they do cost less to deploy, significantly less to deploy by comparison, but they don't provide the same level of capability. So if you are looking at the integration gateway, by all means come and talk to us about it, but one thing you do need to do is evaluate that. Evaluate what you're losing compared to what the business case is for doing this in the first place. It may counterbalance itself and be the right answer, but again, you need to evaluate that. But really, as cloud project control system deployments become more common, the technology needs to move with the way that you guys are moving. So the tech is moving with you and it has to follow you or be ahead of you in some respects if it can. And iPaaS products are really where things are moving towards or are at now. And that's where things are at now. And that means that integrations are becoming a lot simpler, a lot quicker, and more importantly, doable by a lot more people, making them more cost effective, spreading the load. So that's it from me. I hope that's been of some interest. By all means, fire questions at me now. Anyone got one?
Very good having all the data integrated. What sort of pitfalls getting all that data integrated?
So it's a really good question. So like, what's really cool is we put everything in the same place, yeah? And everybody starts to think, oh, that's phenomenal. I can see all my data in the same place. Everything's really cool and all that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden the customer logs into your application and goes, whoa, hang on. You told me that that date was this day, not this date. Oh, well, we haven't had a chance to change that yet. So things like that. Or you basically integrate all of your accounting information and push in all your cost expenditure in and all your purchase orders and invoices. And for some reason, somebody unfortunately put a number in the wrong place, or maybe it's the decimal place even, and instantly they're seeing those as impacts by integrating all this data. So Jeff and I were talking about this before I started speaking today, and it's something we're going to talk about this afternoon, but again, it's a really good concept of actually making sure what you're integrating is the right things to integrate within your bubble, within your own environment. And maybe if it's an environment you're sharing with a customer, maybe that isn't the right place to do that. So what Jeff was saying was we're integrating in an environment that's your integrated environment and maybe another integrated environment. They speak to each other, but there's some form of gap in the middle, like an air gap through the middle, which again is a really good point Jeff's making, really good question, really good point. So all this like blue sky integration stuff is really good, but practically it's got to work.
Exporting the data, how would you export the data out? Would you still recommend going back to Excel in a way to try and extract what you want to show your client, for instance?
No, I hate Excel, but that's me personally. But no, I don't know if anybody heard the gentleman asked at the back there. You want to get some data out of your fully integrated system. How are you going to do that? Because if you pull it all out and you want to supply that to the customer in a slightly different way, would you use Excel? Personally, no, I wouldn't. I would look at a reporting tool to do that, something like BI Publisher, Oracle OBIE, something like that. Because then the fact that you've got to export the data out of your system means that you having to do something before, instead of just analysing the data. So you would build some form of capability into the actual system that actually allowed you to manipulate or modify the data before it went out, and then you just have a static report that comes out. That's the better way of doing that.
Does iPaaS take the place of software like BI software like Tableau or QuickSense, or is it something that's meant to talk to it?
No, it's
for the analysis?
it is very different. So like ClickView, Tableau, they're very much more reporting and applications. So they'll look at data that's being fed from somewhere and do analytics against that, analysis against that. Integration platform as a service is very much moving data from one place to another, transposing that data, changing the data, applying filters to that data and getting it from one place to a other place, where Tableau and ClickView is a case of, well, the data's there, I'm just going to connect to it and give you a graphical output. So it's not reporting, it's very much movement and shipping of data and changing of data. Oh, sorry, the question was, it was around, if we've got everything in our integrated system, how easy is it to get it out and then report on it, do something with it? Yeah. So if I give it, the best way to answer that question is give you like a real example of that. So let's say, for example, we're working in a Primavera world. We've got P6 doing our plans. We've got Unify sat in the middle. That's all the cost collection, workflow, etc. And we've got maybe it's like e-business or something like that. That's an accounting tool that's doing all the financial accruals and everything. Well, in some respects, you've still got, even though you're pushing data into all the different places, you can still go back to the source and extract that data if you need to. Or still, joining on to your question, still connect your reporting tool to those applications to then still report on them. But the difference between a non-integrated system and an integrated one is that you go to the source. and pull that data rather than going to one of these many spreadsheets or one of these many databases tables, yeah? So that's the difference. Once it's all working together, then you can actually target the sources to get the right data, and you know it's right, or as right as it can be. Good question.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. Just wanted to know what's the general trend, whether you tweak the integration platform or you tweak the organization's data to suit the integration platform?
I'll be honest, we normally find that organizations won't change, so it's the integration. The integration accommodates that, but therefore it's dependent upon the customer. If the customer's prepared to go through a wholesale change, and one of the projects we're doing at the moment, that is not going to happen because this has been working for so many years. But if it's a new, completely green, blank slate deployment, then you could manipulate the customer to change their way they work. But 9 times out of 10, integrations put in place, and this is where the complexity comes in, to actually mitigate the fact that they need to change these source systems, and it actually accommodates that and manages that. So we normally find the answer is no, they will not change, and the integration has to accommodate that. But ideally, it would be great if they could.
So in that case, the follow-up thing is, if I go back to your slide where you created that magic and said change disrupts everything. So if you are locked into a sort of like a customized integration platform, then change, does it not become even more difficult, which could have been much easier on an Excel?
Yeah, it does. It makes, yes, it does. It makes it significantly more difficult, but that is where the logic that needs to be built into the integration engine itself needs to replicate what the individuals would be doing themselves as close as possible. That may mean that there are either some functional gaps that aren't achievable, but that may mean there may be a small change required rather than a complete whole change for the business. Normally we find small changes, subtle changes, data cleansing, for example, can come and fix those problems. But it all depends on the customer, whether they're actually prepared to move or not. 9 times out of 10, they're not. My humble opinion, my experience. That makes it harder, but good questions. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. Thank you.